Number 10. The first photo of the Sphinx of Giza. The Great Sphinx of Giza was fabricated over 4,500 years back, in a real sense millennia before photography was concocted in 1826. From that point forward, crowds of photographs of the Great Sphinx and the Pyramids of Giza have been taken by individuals who came from all the sides of the world to see these grand landmarks for themselves. As a piece of what is accepted to be the primary arrangement of photos taken of the sculpture, Maxime Duchamp snapped a photograph of the Great Sphinx, with the pyramids obvious out of sight, in 1849. By then the chest territory of the Sphinx had without a doubt, as of late, been uncovered. Another photo taken in 1860, uncovered that further exhuming had revealed much a greater amount of the sculpture. Today, the whole Sphinx is noticeable, including its tail that folds over the back and stretches to its correct back paw. Just the nose, accepted to have been a meter wide, is absent from the sculpture. Sphinx of Giza was fabricated over 4,500 years back, in a real sense millennia before photography was concocted in 1826. From that point forward, crowds of photographs of the Great Sphinx obvious out of sight, in 1849. By then the chest territory of the Sphinx had without a doubt, as of late, been uncovered. Another photo taken in 1860, uncovered that further exhuming had revealed much a greater amount of the sculpture. Today, the whole Sphinx is noticeable, including its tail that folds. Number 9. The splendor of the mausoleum. The terrific Taj Mahal catacomb was authorized by the Mughal sovereign Shah Jahan in 1632 to hold the burial place of his significant other, Mumtaz Mahal. After Jahan kicked the bucket, his remaining parts also were entombed in a burial place inside the catacomb. This story took a turn for the horrifying when a fantasy began getting out, and about that said Shah Jahan cut off the hands and gouged out the eyes of all the specialists and craftsmen who dealt with the Taj Mahal, to guarantee they couldn't reproduce its excellence elsewhere in the world. The first ever photographs of the landmark were taken by Dr. John Murray, somewhere in the range of 1858 and 1862. The principal photo of the Taj Mahal portrays a side perspective on the structure with the waterway Yamuna streaming before it. Number 8. Boating on Yellowstone Lake. The Yellowstone National Park is home to Yellowstone Lake, the biggest waterway in the recreation center. Pre-notable occasions saw Native Americans populate the forested areas and valleys encompassing the lake, with the principal European voyager to discover the lake, John Coulter, doing as such during the 19th century. A fishing span was included 1902, yet shut for fishing in 1973, after the fast decrease of relentless trout. In 1871, the primary reported boat cruised out on the waters of Yellowstone Lake. The Annie was cruised to Stevenson Island on 29 July 1871 and was a little canvas boat estimating 12 feet in length. The boat contained travelers James Stevenson and Henry W. Elliott. Number 7. Van Gogh photo controversy. Vincent van Gogh is as popular for his excellent artistic creations as he is for removing his own ear. The Starry Night, The Yellow House and Cypresses are among his most mainstream fine arts. Van Gogh additionally made various self-pictures, yet just had 2 photos taken of himself all through his lifetime. Any of the photos was introduced at a show in 1957, during which Belgian scientist Marc-Ido Tralbot asserted that it portrayed a 13-year-old Van Gogh. In 2014, in any case, a Dutch TV program utilized imaging innovation to age-transform the Van Gogh photograph and contrasted it with the other photograph of the craftsman, taken when he was 19. It was discovered that the photographs didn't coordinate. The Van Gogh Museum took up the issue and inferred that the 19-year-old was without a doubt Van Gogh, yet couldn't indisputably demonstrate that the photograph of the 13-year-old was in reality the craftsman. Numerous specialists presently accept that rather than the photograph portraying a teenage Van Gogh, it indeed portrayed his sibling, Theo Van Gogh. Number 6. Argyll's Docteville dinosaur. Dinosaur fossils have interested the total populace for quite a while. Books have been expounded on these monster animals and motion pictures created that show them in the entirety of their previous glory. In 1898, an unearthing in a land arrangement in Europe, Argyll's Docteville, revealed a few bones having a place with a stegosaur. Novice geologist, scientist and excavator, Émile Saval, took a few photographs of the uncovering cycle, and it turned into the most established enduring photos of a dinosaur unearthing in Europe. Saval had discovered a strong square of Kimmeridgian limestone on the seashore. The square contained fossilized bones and, after he informed the Natural History Museum in Le Havre, it was affirmed that the bones had a place with a dinosaur. Savall kicked the bucket in 1902, and around then, the skeleton had not at this point been recognized similar to that of a stegosaur, with it actually being depicted erroneously as an iguanodon in 1904. It was distinctly in 1911 that the Osterville bones were first accurately portrayed as having a place with a stegosaur. Number 5. The Smiling Hippo. An adorable infant hippopotamus was caught on an island in the White Nile and gave to England as a trade-off for deerhounds and greyhounds in 1850. Abish, named after the island he was found on, showed up in London to the cheers of many energized observers. His new home, the Zoological Gardens, saw the quantity of guests twofold short-term. Abish appeared as though he was grinning at whatever point he slept, and he was one of the principal star creatures and the main hippo to show up in Victorian Britain. Abish got away from the zoo at one point, and legend has it that an animal specialist was roped in his trap to help bait the hippo back into his fenced-in area. A subsequent hippo was shipped off the zoo in 1854, named Adela. Abish and Adela created posterity 16 years after the fact, yet misfortune struck when their initial two calves passed on not long after birth. A third calf named Guy Fawkes was brought into the world in 1872 and endured. Number 4. Table Mountain Cableway. Table Mountain in Cape Town, SA, has filled guests with amazement and miracle for many years. In 1790, Lady Anne Bernard turned into the main Capetonian lady to scale the highest point when it must be done by walking. In 1912, plans for a cableway up the mountain began to come to fruition. On 4 October 1929, the cableway was authoritatively opened. From that point forward, more than 20 million individuals have taken a trolley to the top, including Arnold Schwarzenegger and Oprah Winfrey, just as Sir Edmund Hillary and George Lowe. The absolute first streetcar that made the course up the mountain resembled a wooden box with windows, and taking a gander at it today, it doesn't rouse a lot of trust in its capacity to ship a gathering of individuals up the enormous Table Mountain. However, during its long history, the cableway has kept a 100% security record without any mishaps happening since its origin. Number 3. Into the Jaws of Death. There are a large number of photos that have caught the repulsiveness and misfortune of war. A portion of these photographs portray the grisly consequence of fights, while others show the mental impacts that the various wars have engraved on officers and their families. Numerous photos have been made during move and reflect not just the awful conditions the troopers needed to live in, yet the frightening activities they had no real option except to undertake. On 6 June 1944, Robert F. Commander snapped a picture of American officers landing from a LCVP at Omaha Beach during World War II. The photograph was named Cabs to Hell and Back into the Jaws of Death, and the first subtitle read, American intruders spring from the incline of a Coast Guard monitored landing canal boat to swim those last dangerous yards to the seashore of Normandy. Adversary fire will chop some of them down. Their taxi will pull itself off the sands and run back to Coast Guard monitored transport for more passengers. This photo earned the standing of being perhaps the most popular photographs of D-Day. Just about 10,000 fighters were killed during D-Day. They were covered in the Normandy American Cemetery, which is situated on a bluff sitting above Omaha Beach. In excess of 1,500 troopers' bodies were rarely recuperated. Number 2. Balancing on Top of the World. The event that you have a dread of statures, you probably won't appreciate taking a gander at this photograph. Acrobats Charlie Smith, Jewel Wadek and Jimmy Kerrigan played out a valiant daily practice on top of an edge on the 86th floor of the Empire State Building on 21 August 1934. Nicknamed the Three Jacksons, the youngsters flaunted a multifaceted difficult exercise which finished in them taking after a human figure. Number 1. Kangaroos in Egypt. This is really an interesting photograph. Not exclusively are the pyramids of Giza noticeable behind lines of warriors, one of the officers is slouched before a kangaroo of all things. Kangaroos and different creatures were carried everywhere on the world during the First and Second World Wars by Australian soldiers who were glad to serve Australia. This is the means by which the kangaroo in this photo made it right to Egypt. A few warriors even snuck koalas and possums. Numerous Egyptians were astounded at seeing the marsupials in their nation and spooky terrified of them until they were educated that kangaroos were innocuous except if incited.